A circle full of dogs. We put in a work. Oh, baby, let's go out there with a bunch of crazy dogs.
What's happening, folks? Welcome to another episode of Giants Rush. Absolutely nothing but technical difficulties. All right. I have no idea what the heck is happening right now. First is Spartan Mike is nowhere to be found. Two, we lost Sean and we're trying to get him back. Three, the platform that I've been publishing on for, I don't know, got to be 3 years now, says, excuse me, this is how bad today is. We're falling apart. So the platform says that Twitter will no longer let you broadcast on their platform unless you pay for it. So I have to buy a premium Twitter account to broadcast this podcast. Been doing this podcast for 5-6 years now, and now Twitter is telling me I need a premium account. I'm not even sure if I'm live on YouTube right now. Oh, there's Bill. Well, thank God Bill's here, because I don't know what the heck is happening right now. All I know is that I'm getting a pop-up that says Twitter will no longer allow me to broadcast this platform and this show to you folks, because I have to buy a premium account. Why is that? Why would I have to buy a premium account to share my own feed? All I'm doing is sharing my feed on my page. It's $8 a month, but it's bullcrap. And did you know that? Yeah, no one alerted me to that. I'm finding out as the show's going live that I need to buy a premium account to broadcast my own feed. That doesn't make any sense. He needs Sean needs a new link. The other one is not the same now. Yeah, I know. I donate that much. Stop crying. It's got nothing to do with Jay. Go back on your meds, dude. It's got nothing to do with the money. It has to do with, one, you should tell me before I need it, right? Tell me in advance. And two, why would I need a premium account? Right? Why would I need a premium account? Which all I'm doing is taking my own feed. I'm creating this on a streaming platform. Jay, you're crazy, dude. All right, let me get these guys a link. We got a lot to talk about. Thank you, Jay. I'm just salty right now because the show has started off not the way I wanted it to. So let's re-invite these cats. Let's do that. Send these guys a link, hoping that this works for these guys. Let's send it here. I have no idea where Spartan Mike is, but all right, gentlemen, I just sent you a new link. Hopefully that works. Yeah, we're not going to complain anymore, but Twitter sucks, and so does Elon. All right, so what do you guys think? A lot of things happen, right? We've got Hard Knocks, episode 2. A lot of fun, right? We're going to talk about, as soon as the guys show up, we're going to talk a little bit about top 5 wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks in Giants history. So there's that. And overall, we are getting closer to the season. It's coming kind of fast, right? So if you haven't been paying attention to that, we are just now on YouTube and YouTube only. No more Twitter because we don't have access to it at the current time. But we'll get that up and running, or we'll look into another channel, maybe Instagram. We'll figure that out. So thanks. Oh, there's Sean. What's up, dude? Sean, can you hear me?
I'm backstage.
Nope, you're in the front.
Oh, okay. It doesn't look like I am, but all right. It's just you on the screen. I see you, and I'm in a small little box. There we go. All right. Yep, yeah. I'm here. Technical
There's Spartan Mike.
What's up, guys?
There we go. Technical difficulties aside, we're here.
Yeah, I was just saying, gentlemen, that Twitter all of a sudden changed their rules without telling us, right? And actually, Cold, he was on time. He got cut off because of Elon. So I don't know what you guys think, but you guys can tell me. All of a sudden now, on my own platform, which is StreamYard, that I pay for, that I stream on, it can no longer be pushed to Twitter unless I buy a premium account on Twitter.
What? You can't push this to Twitter anymore?
Nope. Not unless I pay for a premium account. Twitter has just literally gone downhill to the point where I don't even want to use it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know if when you get the premium though, it's beneficial, but I'm just sick and tired of the fact that we have to do that in the first place.
Yeah,
that's why I was saying Jay's making fun of me because I'm complaining, but I'm saying, but I pay for StreamYard. It's my feed. I'm just airing it on my page. Why would I need a premium account for that?
Money.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's always about money.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it would have been nice to start the show off the correct way. So anybody right now that's we're only going to get YouTube people for right now. So if you guys both want to tweet out that we're now exclusively on YouTube and not Twitter, and Elon can go sit and spin. In the meantime, Shawnee, tell me a little bit about what you thought about Hard Knocks. I've got a spurt. It's episode 2.
Yep.
Was on Tuesday. I had a good time with it. A couple, there were some highlights that were pretty fun. So we can talk about a little bit about Hard Knocks. Spartan, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a couple of weeks.
Been a minute.
Yep. And guys, we do have next week. We will have Jordan Renan from ESPN, and then after that, we'll have Sean Marash from WFAN. So we've got a couple back busy weeks. So let's just start off. Hard Knocks, off-season, episode 2. Sean, go. What did you think?
I liked it. One of the things that stood out to me is number one, seeing the scouts give Daboll and Shane information when they're interviewing the quarterbacks, and Daboll used that information when he was working with those guys. So I thought it was great. I love that they're all working in the same thing. Nice to see a little bit more of personalities with the scouts and everything there, and just the process, like how things work. They gave us a lot more insight than I thought they were going to give, and I think episode 3 is going to show even more, and I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, almost like you wanted them to give you more, right? They're doing a good job of leaving some cliffhangers there where you're like, oh, I just needed a little bit more. How about you, Spartan? Did you get a chance to see it yet?
I did. Yeah, I finally got a chance to see it the other day. I got to tell you, the one thing that I love when I watch this is, and a lot of it's been focused on Shane, but I got to tell you, Daboll, the amount of confidence that dude has, like when he's talking to the players and he's running the talk shop, I just love it. I could feel the energy in the room of why players like him and respect him. That's been one aspect that's cool. He's talking to quarterbacks. He's talking to neighbors, and neighbors says, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'll be pretty frustrated if I don't get the ball earlier. I don't get involved in the game. And then Daboll turns, he's like, you know what? I like that. I like the energy. We got to make sure we channel it right. But I like the fact that, we got a good dude that wants to go out there and ball out. Did my mother like it as much with the language? Probably not. But you know what? That's bottom line is I feel confident in the coach we have. Other things, Sean, to your point, man, being able to see these behind the scenes things that we didn't expect, like the general manager when he went over to the Patriots, is like, hey, don't make a trade without calling us first. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Just because I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't expect them to air that. But it's also amazing how casual a lot of these things come up, like the Brian Burns trade and the Patriots possible trade.
Yep.
It's not like it's a Pentagon setting where you got one crew and another crew. Like it's pretty informal. Like, I don't know, Craig, you like that aspect too? It's fun seeing those things actually transpire.
Well, me and Sean were having this conversation during the week. Is Sean's got a football background. I have a football background. We just talk to you like how our coaches, would talk to us, right? Like it's not. Now the stakes are higher. right?
I'm
There's
just
no-
talking GMs between GMs. That just from that standpoint, like just
just
seeing
from
like
the GM, because I was going to say when I see Dable with his confidence, I think every coach has confidence, whether they're at the D3 level, D1 level, right? The pros, I think they're all pretty confident, but we never get to see it, right? So the GM part is you never really get to see a personality of a GM, right? In the course of a year, you see a press conference 4 times a year with a GM, and that GM is either super personable, an asshole, aloof, or just
all the above.
or a bore fest. Like the guy's got no personality at all. So
real quick, I'm glad it wasn't Gettleman. Like I'm glad we didn't see Gettleman like transpire the transactions in the back. Like I feel like that would have just boiled us.
Yeah, well, I used to say all the time what I didn't like about the number one thing I didn't like about Gettleman's personality from a media standpoint was the stand-up comedy. I'd always be like, dude, just be the GM. Tell us that you know these players, why you know these players, how you know these players, what you're going to do together. Don't do stand-up comedy. It's not your best look. And Gettleman would get up there and do that stand-up comedy, and I would be like, this guy's a chump. And it used to drive me crazy.
And to your point, Craig, like with the coaches, like this scene where Daboll's talking about if you put a plate of chicken wings at the end, I can run under 7 seconds. Like those are conversations that happen, but people don't think they happen. So that's not staged for the camera. Like that's the shit that goes on with coaches. That's how they talk to each other. That's real. That doesn't get much real than that conversation right there. But people don't realize that it is real, and that's what happens with these coaches. So I thought it was great to see that.
And they're humans.
Yeah.
Right? Like they have sense of humor. They do. Like the only difference between them and us is that they have a long track record of coaching at a high level, right? Like they were the best high school coach, the best assistant in grad school. They worked their way to get where they are, just like anyone does in any field, right? But they still have personality. They're still dads, brothers, sons, right? Like they still operate the same. And everyone's just like, wow, I didn't expect that. And it's nice to see, right? Yeah. It's nice to see. But the GM thing probably, to your point, Spartan, grabs my attention the most because you never see the GM. You never see anything the GM says, does, like, you really got an idea that, like, look, man, Shane loves what he does. He loves this market, and he's going to try to build a pretty cool team. I mean, does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, I agree.
There was one little tidbit. I don't know if a lot of people caught it, but it's interesting that that dynamic has changed with the Patriots now that Belichick's there, because a comment was made like you wouldn't even approach this room in the past with Belichick there. Now with him gone, it's like, oh, okay, we can talk to the Patriots again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, after the fact, you're like, hey, okay. It's one of those after the fact aha moments, right?
Yep.
Now, Spartan, what did you think? My personal favorite part, of course, is the chalk talk, right? You got Daniel chalk talk, and Drake May chalk talk, and you're basically watching Dable, play, mind games with these guys to see how they can, maneuver and operate under pressure.
How can they respond to pressure, right?
Yeah. It reminds me, and you guys have probably seen it before. There's this really great clip of John Gruden yelling at Sims's kid. I don't remember which one, but I'm going to go with Chris Sims, right? And he's screaming at the top of his, lungs at Chris Sims, and he's like, "What don't you understand? Let's go through it again. It's a double XY mongoose, rip right, curl Z, bring it in, tandem 2, fly route, corner post with a drag on the camel toe, cheese fungus route."
There's a lot to a play, There's a lot to consider there, and when you're testing those players for just how quickly they can perform under pressure, I mean, that's one thing you look for in a quarterback, because that's a very important trait. Now, how they do in chalk talk versus how they do on the field, I don't know, but I trust that Dable's asking us, doing that just to get a little bit of a glimpse. How do you react? Do you crumble? It was cool seeing that, and then it gives you a little bit idea of what kind of quarterbacks you're working with, right? Which I'm sure was your next question anyway, so I don't want to beat you to it.
No. I mean, just basically it was like, I thought Daniels did well. Like he was like, so what do you do in this spot? And he's like, throw a touchdown, right? Like I know that wasn't what they were looking for, but he was quick. But I gotta give May. I thought May was gonna be a goober, and he like was right in there, like, cruising through. I actually have a new respect for his intellect.
I think the low-key confidence there was super helpful. I didn't realize he was legacy at UNC either. I guess his dad played there. That came up on the show. I had no idea.
Yeah, so
Drake, man.
Yeah, May had turned down Alabama, Georgia, there was 2 or 3 other ones he turned down because his dad was the quarterback at UNC, started for 2 years, wanted to play where his dad played.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I think he was the most impressive during that session, just in terms of how quickly he got everything and how he didn't react at all to the pressure. He was just kind of like he was just chewing gum the whole time and just spitting out the plays. So I think he did the best in that segment. Of course, how that translates to talent, what he could do on the field. I mean, look, obviously Shane loved him, and I think that's the reason they went for him. But look, what you want to be able to decipher there is, do you have a Ryan Leaf on your hands? Do you have a Jamarcus Russell? If you have, a guy that's really faltering through that, it gives you an insight that there might be a weakness there in the crumble under pressure, or how much effort they even give when they're talking through that, right? So May definitely did the best, no doubt about it. But I was impressed by all the quarterbacks. I actually don't really think any of them did too poor of a job.
No, and they were all quick, right? And they seemed like they were picking up basically the what Dable was putting down. What about you, Sean? Anything outside of that, that jumped out at you? Did you like the chalk talk part? Did it register with, hey, maybe I should have given these guys a little bit more credit for their intellect, or opposite, where you were like, forget the quarterbacks, listen to Dable rip off this offense, this is going to be a great year?
Yeah, so twofold there. I was like, well, now people have more insight in what goes into being a quarterback, other than, they got to remember the plays. They got to understand what's going on. Like, I think it was good insight there. And two, to your point there, absolutely, I was ecstatic about Dable running this offense and calling plays and what he's going to be able to do, because what they pointed out is, Liv Schreiber said, Dable's got a PhD in quarterbacks. He's worked from Favre all the way to Josh Allen, right? You look at the quarterbacks he's worked with, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. They may have known a few here and there, but
and
I don't think
Alabama guys too, right? I mean, that's
right. Tua and Hurts, right? And they've all had great careers under Daboll. They all did great things. And so the fact that this guy has worked with those type of quarterbacks, that's huge. So yeah, I'm extremely excited. I was excited when I knew it was going to happen, right? This got me even more excited. I've been calling for Daboll to call plays for a long time. Now hear him talk, understand he understands it. Because again, if it was Daboll's offense with Kafka calling plays. Now it's Daboll's offense with his mind. You see what he understands and what he sees, and now he's implementing that into calling plays the day of the game. How can you not be excited about that?
Yeah. I mean, it can't be any worse than it's been, right? I mean, we've had the most vanilla, just like we don't have to love Jones. I don't even really care. But man, you've never sat back, except for that Arizona game, and went like this. We are going to throw this thing lights out, win or lose. It's going to be exciting. It's like a heroin drip every week. You're like, really? Yeah. What are we doing? Are we really going to run a screenplay here? Oh my.
Oh yeah. It's just the anemic offense is getting old, isn't it? I'm not saying Jones. I'm just everybody just, it's getting old.
Yes.
Let's get rid of our best running back. No, I'm kidding.
Well,
and then seeing Neighbors too. I'm excited about what they show the Neighbors in that. Like you said, Spartan, his reaction to Daboll's questions. Now we have that guy. Man, they're going to force feed him the ball. Get him the ball, right? So you got things to be excited about.
It's funny. I mean, I think some people might look at that response and be like, "Whoa, we don't want that." But you know what? I forgot who said in the Giants organization, Hard Knocks, but they had a good point. How many dominant NFL wide receivers are just, team, what he's trying to get at is most ball out wide receivers in the NFL do have a little, personality to them, a little bit of bitterness if they're not getting involved, right? Because that's who they are. They're hungry for the ball. They're hungry to get involved. They're hungry players.
It was Brandon Brown who said, he's like, let's be realistic. All great wide receivers are not choir boys. So.
Yes, that was the line. Exactly. Because, if they wanted to go that route, Odunze did give the best interview, I think, in my opinion. But, I remember, who do we have on here? We had Dunleavy on here saying that he wished they went with Odunze because they felt that he was more of that player. But I'll be quite honest, like if Neighbors is just more talented, as long as they don't think there's a severe personality flaw, just get the dude that's balling out. Just get the dude that's balling out.
Yeah. And I think that interview is, and Daboll saw the tape. He said he watched tape all day on Neighbors. And Greg, you can comment on this too. Like, that was, to me, in that episode is what stood out. He watched tape on Neighbors all day long. He was impressed with him on the tape. He got an interview, and you could see the difference between Odunze gave great answers, but you could see the difference between the type that, not there's anything wrong with Rome, but there's that little extra edge, Spartan, as you're talking about, that I think we're missing. I think Daboll likes, like Daboll said, I want the guy who wants the ball all the time is going to be upset if he's not getting involved, which I thought was another great insight. What do you think of that, Craig?
It's funny too, because I saw that quote and I was trying to think like what great receivers weren't choir boys, right? I was just like, because it was a great topic, and I was like, all right, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Fitzgerald was one that was top of mind.
Cooper Kupp, Reggie Wayne. There was some good guys out there.
Harrison was,
Julian. No, Harrison got bagged for like gun possession or something at the end of his career.
Yeah,
he had a streak in him, but the point is, yes. Most of the best receivers got an edge to them, right? I wasn't really looking at it like Rome was the nice guy and Neighbors was not the nice guy.
It's not about nice or not. Or like, choir boy kind of thing.
I think it's what the Giants need right now, right? The Giants were just struggling. Odell comes around and then Odell rips the cover off the ball, and all of a sudden it's exciting again. Listen, love or hate Odell Beckham, he was the most exciting, dynamic player the Giants have had potentially since Tiki Barber or Lawrence Taylor. I mean, he just was that exciting. And Colt says Tim Brown. Tim Brown was also a really super nice guy. But overall, we need a little edge. We need a little swagger. We need a little dog, right? Because we've got guys like, listen, Wandell's a nice guy. Jones is a nice guy. Like, we need a little edge, right? I mean, how do we know Eli's Eli, if his career doesn't have Odell? He's accurate, right? He can win games, but you saw the other side of him because he threw the ball a ton with Odell, right? Yep. Before Odell, we had running backs. We had Jacobs, and we had Ward, and we had Bradshaw, right? And we had all these Tiki Barber. We had these great running backs. Well, when they were gone, it was the Odell show, right? So right now, I think it's okay to have a little bit of a dog that wants the ball, and we're gonna stick it. I hope Jones can stick it on his chest, and let's see what he can do. So
and again, if he's just the most talented receiver, he's going to be the most reliable. He's going to be the Pro Bowl, the All Pro. Then go for that. Don't settle for somebody because they seem nice. Like, don't do it. Again, if a severe character flaw, I get it, but just go for the talent.
I mean, putting a bow on it, though, I don't think, like Rome and Neighbors are 1 and 1A. I don't think they're just different style of players, right? Because like I said, like Hakeem Nicks was a good guy, right? And
if they walked away with Odunze as the wide receiver, I mean, it wouldn't be a significant issue. I'm with you. What I would hate is to know that, like, in 15 years, if we look back and Neighbors is, a Hall of Fame bound guy, and Odunze is like, a guy that had a couple decent years here and there. And the ultimate reason they didn't go with the guy who was more talented as a prospect was because of personality. Then I'd be pissed off. But I'm just saying right now.
And you know what, Spartan? I don't think we're playing that game anymore. I think it's like, look, we're going to draft you. We need you to stay in line, and that's it, right? I mean,
and obviously, look, this is New York. Everybody's got to be careful. Everybody's got to be very careful with the media.
Well, and the scout said that. He's like, we got to get around this guy to see if we can work with him, whatever. But I think Brandon Brown said it best. And, to put that bow on it, Craig, is Brandon Brown said he gives us something that we don't have. And that's all you need to know. So
pulling full circle here back I'm going to throw it up here because I blew by. Tim was asking about your guy, Sean, about Tracy. and him being a triple threat, rushing, receiving, returning kicks. Yeah, Tim, 100%. Like, he's got a wide receiver background. He's got a running back background. Like, there's no reason why this cat doesn't see the ball 8 to 10 times a game. Long as he knows the playbook, long as he's, doing everything they want him to do, he's going to get on the field. Most young coaches now want to play their young players and get them on the field. So if they can play, like, they know by the middle of camp if these guys can hang. Some guys don't have playbook issues. Some guys want to party. Maybe some guy don't have the work ethic, but the ones that do, right? The Wan'Dale Robinson, the Daniel Bellinger, right? These guys just step in and right away, McFadden, you're like, this guy's going to make it, right? This guy's going to be a player. So a guy like Tracy, if he's impressing the coaches, he's going to play, because at the end of the day, this team's going to struggle to score touchdowns. So if Tracy can turn out 6 touchdowns, let's get him the ball, right? Whatever that be. I mean, like, again, I'm a little weirded out by the fact that they draft a receiver that was a running back and a running back that's a receiver. But on the other side of the coin, guys, he can potentially be, like I said, a triple threat and do it well. So, but Hard Knocks was great. Tuto, thank you very much. Love to see that. Anybody who's out there, and you guys, we got a pretty big Rush family. For whatever reason, you normally see us on Twitter. We're not there right now. We're only on YouTube right now because you have to buy a premium account on Twitter. So if you're normally watching Giants Rush on Twitter, please let your friends know, and everybody that for the time being, we're on YouTube until we figure out what the next step is. All right, Hard Knocks is over. We'll get another episode, I guess, every Tuesday at, what's it, 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Yep. So we'll be able to see what the next step is, if it's going to be, but it's definitely a good production. I like it. I know sometimes, people are like, do you think they're hamming it up for the cameras and stuff? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. I do know the fact that, like, I do have a TV background, and it takes a lot of hours, to get a little bit of content that's good, right? You film a lot of stuff. Oh, we can't use that, or the lighting's wrong. It doesn't sound right. Or so, sometimes you're in that spot where you're like, hey, look, this is a good take. Let's use it. Right.
Yep.
What do I say every week? What do I say every week, Cole? You lost me on that one. All right. So let's get into it's the 100-year anniversary of New York Giants football. I think they're doing a really good job. I think you guys would agree, right? With all 100%. The marketing around 100 years.
Fantastic job. The Giants are doing a great job with this. Because I'll criticize the Maras, I'll criticize the Giants for a lot of things. I know I get a reputation of being negative. They've done a great job with NFL 100. And by the way, the replica rings for all the fans, fantastic touch. That is an incredible touch by the Giants ownership.
Yeah, I think if I had to make a guess, normally that stuff, like last year, they sent these cups, right? And there's like a stack of them, and they're like, I don't know, I mean, they're drinking glasses, right? And they have like all these different like scenes on them, right? And they're pretty cool because they weren't for sale, so they had them made for season ticket holders. Dying to see what these rings look like. I mean, like, just I don't even know what to make of it. Like, I mean, like, are they going to be like a heavy plastic, like a resin? Are they going to be metal? Like, whatever it is.
Put on, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll do an unboxing when I get them on the air. We'll unbox them. But I will tell you, whatever it is, it doesn't even matter if they were cardboard. They're doing a good job. They're doing a good job to try to bring some fun back. So I hope all you guys, are embracing the season. I'm hoping for an 8-win season, and I'll be, that I know we're going in the right direction. So let's get into what I call the top 5. We all know that you need a good quarterback, you need a good wide receiver, you need a good running back, and there's a massive debate on who's better than who all the time, right? So I figured that we'd have a little bit of fun. What's up, Mark B? Good to see you. Let's have a little fun, guys, with top 5 Giants all-time quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Spartan, you've got the running backs.
Yeah.
Sean, you've got the quarterbacks. I'll take
Yep.
the wide receivers. So let's kick this off. I'm going to start with you, Sean.
All right.
We're going to start over the QBs, right? Because every team needs not only a good QB. If you want to win, you need a great QB.
Yep.
I think that's some of the arguments around Jones, right? Even if Jones has a good year, he's never going to be great. And to be great, it's very in Spartan. Well, I think you'd agree that if you're not a great QB, you better have one damn good defense, right?
Absolutely. Just ask Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, or Nick Foles, right?
Yeah.
Or Nick Foles.
So, Sean, tell me your top 5 New York Giants quarterbacks of all time. Start with number 5.
All right. So I'm already breaking rules with top 5.
Here we
Yep.
go.
I mean, listen, are you shocked? I mean, I had the Joker. I mean, don't act like you're surprised here, Craig. So 5, I have a tie. I went with I have a tie. Kerry Collins and Hostetler are the 2 I went with at 5.
All right. Now, what made you decide to tie Hostetler and Collins? Was there, because I'm sure, me knowing you put some thought into this. So number 5 all time, the tie between Jeff Hostetler and Kerry Collins. What made you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, well, you can't leave Hostetler out. I mean, the way he took over in 90, finished that season the way he did, got the Super Bowl victory, held on to the ball when Bruce Smith sacked him in the end zone. So it was only a safety instead of a touchdown. Like, you can't leave the guy off who won the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, you just can't, right? So that's why I had Haas in there. And then Collins, I think he gets forgotten a lot by Giants fans. He got him to a Super Bowl. You know, he had over 16,000 yards and 81 TDs. So, I mean, that's pretty good. So,
you had a cannon.
Yeah, right. So I thought it was a great free agent signing, bringing him in. And like I said, I think he gets overlooked a lot when it talks about Giants quarterbacks. So that's why I went with those 2 at 5.
Spartan, what's your thoughts here? A tie at 5 with Hostetler and Collins, because I'll say that Collins was a superior quarterback from a talent perspective, but Haas won. He won.
So similar to Sean, when we get to the running backs, I'm factoring in a few things here. There's going to be talent. There's also going to be legacy. That could certainly factor in. I think for me, and I think Hostetler started the year after that Super Bowl too. I think he controversially got the start in 1991.
He did.
I personally would still pick. I see what you're doing, and obviously Hostetler wins the legacy because of what he did in the Super Bowl versus what Collins did in his. I think Collins built up enough of a resume with the Giants in the early 2000s to put him over the edge of Hostetler personally, but I completely see what you're doing, and I'm not completely against it. There's no doubt in my mind. And would I have rather have had in the Giants history books Hostetler's finest moment with the Giants Super Bowl versus Collins, Vikings 2000 championship? Yes. But I do think Collins might have a little bit of a resume to separate. So I put honorable mention Hostetler, but I'm not too far off with your evaluation here.
I like that, Spartan. I think I would do the same. Haas as an honorable mention, right?
Yes.
And Collins there at 5. All right, so Shawnee B, give me number 4.
Yeah, so the next few could have gone either way for me, but I went Y.A. Tittle at 4.
Okay. Old school.
I like the old
right?
Hall of Famer. He went to 3 straight championships with the Giants. He had over 10,000 yards, 96 touchdowns. And I gave him the edge because he has one of the most iconic photos ever for the NFL.
Yes, he does. With the blood dripping down his head.
With the blood dripping down and all of that right there, yeah. And again, I mean, he had over 10,000 yards and 96 touchdowns in an era where they weren't throwing a lot. That would translate to much higher yardage in today's NFL. And you go to 3 straight championships, you're a winner. Like, I got to have winners on this list.
Totally.
I always feel he's a 49er, but I get it. I get it. Spartan, you got any commentary there on Y.A. Tittle in his old ass?
Well, one other thing, he won the NFL MVP as a Giant in 1963. So,
yeah, I mean, look, he left behind a strong legacy with the Giants. I think he's a Hall of Famer, and I got a player on my list too that has a legacy, but a lot of it's with another team. But it's worth noting. I mean, when he was with the Giants, he balled out. It was 3 straight years where he was or 4 straight seasons he was pretty dominant.
Yeah.
The Giants fell off the rockers the minute that guy left.
Yep.
All right, so that was number 4.
And I could have put him higher. Honestly, I went back and forth. He could have been higher than 4.
If he played 10 years with the Giants, we're talking about a whole different. I mean, he
Yeah.
could be even higher, right? But it's the 4th season thing.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
so then let's give it to me. Who's number 3?
I have Phil Simms as number 3.
What? Oh my goodness.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to mute you.
Now, when you hear who my top 2 are, it's gonna make sense. Trust me.
Now I know who it is. I'm just like, I can't have it.
I mean, listen, I do not stray from controversy. I don't mind a little here and there, but I think I feel pretty good about this list. And I like Simms. I'll say this: if he did not get injured in '90 and he wins that second Super Bowl, he's at number 2 for me.
And he's a Hall of Famer if he did that.
Exactly. So he has obviously, arguably one of the top Super Bowl performances ever. Super Bowl MVP, 22 of 25. Like, he's got to be up there. And again, if he wins, if he's there, doesn't get injured in 90, he's there for that second Super Bowl, they win, he's number 2, maybe even number 1. Like, that's where that conversation changes, where that goes. Because he was having a phenomenal year in 90. I mean, they were undefeated before he got injured. He had huge yardage going on. He was in the 86 Sims. He was a much better quarterback in 1990. So, but I'm comfortable with where he is at 3, especially when you hear who my number 2 is and why they're at number 2.
I remember talking to Leonard Marshall a while back, and he told us that Phil Simms was one of the he used to lift with the offensive linemen, and they said from a squat perspective, he was just as strong or stronger than some of his offensive linemen. That's how strong Simms was. Like, you're talking about like Billy Ard and Carl Nelson and Bart Oates and drawing a blank on Chris Godfrey. Like some of these guys were big men, right? Big dude. And they said that Simms would get in the squat rack and he would squat just as much as some of the linemen. So he especially as he got older, those first couple of years, he was wrecked a lot. And but he got in the weight room and he proved himself out. Spartan,
he was lighter than those linemen, and he was lifting those numbers. I mean, I think Leonard Marshall was on the show and talked about that, right? I mean, the dude's lifting numbers were actually just insane.
Yeah,
he was strong. And Bill asked if he held a Super Bowl records. He did. It was for most consecutive completions. He held that for a while. He had 10 consecutive completions in the Super Bowl.
And 25 or 27?
22 or 25.
22 or 25. I mean, it's like legendary.
Yeah.
It's freaking legendary. All right. So that's if Phil Simms is number 3, who's number 2?
Charlie Connerly is number 2.
He's got a lot of yards.
I mean, over 19,000 yards in an era where that is phenomenal. That would translate to a lot of yards in this day and age. He had 173 touchdowns. Like, again, imagine in that era, 173 touchdowns, right? He was rookie of the year. All right. He still holds some of the records in the Giants record book for quarterbacks that are still here today. So that's impressive. He has the 1956 championship, and he went to 4 different NFL championships back in the day. And this is what gave him the edge over Simms as well. He then became the Marlboro Man when he was done playing football.
Advertising cigarettes, gotta love it.
Did he wear the cowboy hat?
He did all that. He was the legit Marlboro Man. He was in the Marlboro ads.
Yeah, he was a dude before there were dudes.
Exactly. So you do all his stats, everything he accomplished, and there was so many more accomplishments I didn't even mention he did. But then you add he was the Marlboro Man. Yeah, he's number 2.
Yeah, he was a badass that way. He was Namath before Namath, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or actually, that's probably pretty close inside. Namath is got to be older than Connolly by about maybe 5.
Yeah, he was like the John Wayne of football.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, so So you're talking about Connolly was so before Craig Morton. So he was. Do you have his years? The years he played?
48 to 61.
Yeah.
61. He was done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then Tittle came in for Connerly.
Well, that's very cool. I like it. And of course, we know Eli Manning would be number one.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, there's nothing really more we can say about Eli. You know what I mean? Like
No.
Stats.
fourth quarter comebacks.
The comebacks.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like the only thing you could ever knock the guy for was complete consistency. But guess what? Everything else still factors in. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and the clutch, the comeback, the fourth quarter comebacks, all of that. I mean, you can knock him for his regular season record, but that's still not all on him. And he delivered in the clutch. He arguably has the 2 greatest throws in Super Bowl history.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just insane that one guy has that, and his name is Eli Manning.
Yep.
I use this stat. You guys will see it at least once a year where there's someone off the rails. I mean, off the rails, killing Eli Manning. There are two good things. One is if you ever get a chance, you look, Mike Greenberg from ESPN, right?
Yep.
Mike Greenberg has like a 6-minute rant on Eli Manning that is absolutely priceless. If you've never seen it, I recommend you go to YouTube, you type in Mike Greenberg, Eli Manning rant. It is priceless. Okay. So that's the first thing. And, and again, Greeny's a pretty,
he's a based guy.
Yeah.
But I always break this out, like I said, when someone's completely off the rails. In his tenure, okay, in that 13-year span or whatever, what exact number wasn't? What was it? 2004, right?
Yep.
So him and Drew Brees were the only quarterbacks. Okay, I know, and I've done this. I've looked it up myself because I'm the one that found the stat. Over 8 straight years, he threw for 3,000 yards plus and 20 touchdowns. Now, think about what I'm saying. For 8 years in a row, he threw for 3,000 yards plus and 20 touchdowns plus. Him and Drew Brees were the only two in that era to do it. It wasn't Romo. It wasn't Favre. It wasn't Peyton Manning. It wasn't Tom Brady. Now, if you want to get nitpicky, some of these guys got hurt, right? Some of these guys missed a year because they got hurt. The reason why I bring it up, again, him and Drew Brees are the only two guys that threw 8 straight years, 3,000 plus yards and 20 touchdowns. The moral of the story is all quarterbacks miss games except Eli Manning.
Except Eli. And we take it for granted now, don't we? I mean, my God, at the time I certainly did. Not now, I'm sorry, but I definitely did like back then. We never thought about injured quarterbacks.
I mean, people don't realize like some of the best QBs on the planet miss games.
Yeah.
Like they just do. You want to say Favre misses games. Aikman misses games. Marino misses games. I don't care who you pick out.
Elway missed, multiple games, multiple seasons. Montana,
yeah.
Montana, Elway.
Young.
Eli Manning didn't miss a game until someone by the name of Ben McAdoo came along. All right. So in order, we got a tie. 5 top quarterbacks in Giants history is a tie at 5th place between Hostetler and Collins. Number 4, Sean.
Y.A. Tittle.
Number 3.
Phil Simms.
Number 2.
Charlie Connerly.
And number 1.
Eli.
All right. I love it. I like the list. I'm not sure I'm 100% in your camp, but you make a very powerful argument on those numbers. All right. So let's move over to the top 5 running backs in New York Giants history, because this one has some flavor to it, right? At least with Sean's, it's fairly straightforward who they are. You just have to figure out what order you want to put them in, right?
This gets tough because, listen, we have a lot of – I think the Giants are very unique in the fact that they have a lot of running backs that are on the cusp of the Hall of Fame, but clearly seem just shy of that marker. And you guys should go online. There's a website that ranks, people who are on like the bubble of possibly making the Hall of Fame on multiple of course. And the Giants have some running backs that are right in that bubble. So I looked at a few things here because if I said, this guy, well, he wouldn't be able to make it in this day and age, fine. I factored in legacy. I factored in talent compared to today, how they would compare to current NFL players. But I also benchmarked it to their peers and how they ranked amongst running backs of that time.
Okay.
I factored in all-time stats with the Giants and then consistency. That was another one. I'm going to start from the bottom up. I'm going to start with 2 honorable mentions.
Yep. Give me number 5.
Can I start with 7 and 6 technically because they're the honorable mentions?
So you have your 5, but you have a 6 and a 7.
I got a 6 and a 7. 2 honorable mentions that I got to make note of, and this one's going to draw a little controversy. Otis Anderson, he was a phenomenal running back, and when we talk legacy, I mean, what he did with that 1990 team was outstanding. 1989 as well. He had a great run with the Giants for those 2 years, and really was, kind of a comeback player from what he was with St. Louis. Now, if we factored in his St. Louis numbers,
he's outstanding.
He's arguably number 1.
Yeah,
for sure, because he dominated there and then came to the Giants. And what's funny is, even though he had probably a better overall career with the Cardinals, I mean, he feels like a Giant for life, But he was a very good running back.
I got to throw this up here because I got to put this up there before you go because this you know what?
Yeah, I know what.
This Jay, we love you, but that's not accurate because like OJ Anderson could freaking run. Like you watch that guy play. Like you want to talk about cloud of dust? I give you a bunch of guys that were 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Believe it or not, OJ Anderson was not that guy. That guy had great hips. He could move. He could run you over. But that dude was not.
Yeah,
he was not.
He looked like he would have been that guy, but he wasn't. Right? That's pretty much the bottom.
Yes, he looked like it. Yeah, but I mean, he was a power running back. He was basically the combination of the fullback and the halfback because of his size. But the dude just had so much explosiveness and speed for a big dude. I got to give him a lot of credit. And I know what you're saying, Spartan, is that like when he came here, his first year, he was nothing but a goal line back. Like, so
he had a Super Bowl touchdown. So I'm going to give him props for that one too. That year in '86.
But the year he balled out was that next
89 and 90. Those are the only 2 years. And then you actually look the rest of his career with the Giants. And it's just, really kind of miscellaneous here and there. And remember, a few Giants on this list were all on the same team together. So I'll go right to the other honorable mention guy, Rodney Hampton. The thing that
this is really bad.
I completely get what you guys are going to say. The reason that I'm putting him where he is when I rank him with legacy. I mean, Super Bowl. He did win a Super Bowl with the Giants, but it wasn't many winning teams. His 2 best seasons were 1992, 1993. 93 was a very good year for the Giants. He put a lot of that on the back. That was Sim's last great year. But other than that, I mean, he was the leading force for the Giants in the 90s in terms of offense, and I give him a lot of props for that. But when you line him up with other peers of the 90s, he doesn't generally rank in the top 10 running backs of the 90s.
Wow.
And hey, just for the record, because I know you guys are thinking that I'm going to be biased against old school guys. That's not the case, because when you get to number 2 and number 3 here, you're going to love it, all right?
Rodney freaking Hampton is an honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
Woo!
Dude, burn it down, dude.
Burn
it.
I like your conviction, though. You gave reasons, but woo!
Dude, these are
yikes.
Listen, I hope we clip this up because these are fighting words.
What I give him strong accolade for, particularly, was his consistency. I mean, all these guys on the list, we're dealing with dudes that were kind of hit or miss. Like, this is a huge factor. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. And that was the one thing that I would rank him pretty much near the top in was, for about 5 years there, he was getting 1,000-yard seasons. Again, not doing crazy. Body work wasn't anything out of this world compared to the other running backs at the time. But, that's 5 seasons in a row of 1,000 yards. I don't think anybody got that. Maybe Tiki did. Maybe Tiki did from 01 to 06. I guess that would be 6 seasons. But
those teams were so bad after Sims left. That was part of the problem.
His two best seasons were with Sims too. And I'm not saying that that's a knock or anything, but I think that does go to the point. Like when you look at his numbers and the Giants were losing all those games in the mid-90s.
They were
Not
so
insanely
bad.
but it's a 6-win. These are 6-win teams. He was the offense.
Yeah, Dave Brown
It's
is
very similar to Saquon now,
Oof,
or what Saquon was the last few years.
man.
Dude,
By the way, I gave 6 and he gave 7, so he won up me with not following the rules. By the way, Craig, he gave 7 guys. I gave 6. Well, okay, yeah.
I just want to say before we move on to number 5 is that this freaking hurts right now. Like I'm like, I know Spartan's a younger guy and he really never saw Rodney play, so that makes it easier. But if you have ever seen in person Rodney Hampton play, you could never make him an honorable mention. You wouldn't be able to sleep at night if you had seen that guy play and put him at an honorable mention. So I'm dying here. Number 5.
I have a feeling who else is on that list. I have a feeling who's on that list.
Running backs to the 90s, like, would you say he is?
But here's the thing: we can't compare him to other running backs of his era who had better teams. He played on the most garbage teams of the era back then. Like they were big, they were slow, they were just terrible. Where are those balloons coming from?
I don't know. I must have pressed the right button.
He's celebrating that he's an honorable mention. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, he's celebrating himself.
I have a feeling of one of 2 running backs is going to be in the top 5, and I already know I'm going to have issues with it. Yeah. With respect, of course, Spartan. With respect,
that's all good.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, you got to look at the whole body of work. I mean, we talk about legacy. When we talk about legacy, and again, we're factoring in legacy here too, right?
Yeah, I didn't answer your question.
Super Bowl. That wasn't really his team though, as a running back. All right, and we got to think about
it. Was his team until he got hurt. If he didn't get hurt, OJ doesn't do what he does.
That's an interesting point. But then OJ goes in there and he kills it, right? So listen.
Yeah, that was Hampton's team. That was Hampton's team. He was
right, but just like Hostetler, like we're giving him the nudge with the legacy. I'm gonna give him the nudge because, like, if he won the Super Bowl, we're probably talking about him easily at 3. At the very least. Again,
all right, give me 5 because now I'm because to answer your question is no, I can't compare him to Marshall Faulk. I can't compare him to
Faulk was a little bit later. I'm not even really going with that. And Smith, I get it. He was behind a great offensive line, and we saw what Smith didn't do with the Cowboys. So
all right, give me 5.
I totally get it. Number 5, I'm going Brandon Jacobs, and the reason being is this: he has the legacy. I will go in with the factor that he came in after Tiki Barber and people did not expect much, and he went out there and killed it. He had the unique ability in the day and age of generally somewhat softer running backs where he was running dudes over, and I think that body of work was probably top 5 of any running back ever in the ability to plow dudes over. And when it comes to the legacy of the Super Bowls, he wasn't just there to win them. There were a lot of plays that fell on his back. And like 4th and 1, that's the most underrated Super Bowl play with Super Bowl 42, in my opinion. And we needed to get that 1 yard. It's the only time I ever felt like we can just totally get that 1 yard, where he doesn't really ball out. Consistency. He didn't have the consistency of Rodney Hampton. After the 2008 season, I remember 07, 08, he was dominant. 09, he kind of took a little bit of a step back. 10 looked a little bit better. 11, he was splitting time with Bradshaw, but still very useful to the team. So he certainly doesn't get the regards in that manner, in my opinion. That's where he lacks. But body of work, really body of work. Talent compared to now, I actually think you could throw him in and he could play very good football. That's another aspect there.
I don't really have a huge problem with Jacobs being 5. Like I could probably justify that because I thought later on in his career, he forgot to run hard because he was like one thing about
Jacobs.
He stopped.
There were some times where they do the 4th and 1 and he kind of stopped. Like 09, you saw the difference.
Yeah. So what people don't realize about Jacobs is that his playing weight was 260. Okay. Yeah. He was like a defensive end. And when he got in the league, you were like, there's no way this guy's going to be fast. And he was fast and he was big and strong and he just ran dudes. I mean, there is a highlight reel of him running over that safety, Landry. He ran over Landry and I thought Landry was dead. I mean, I had never seen a dude,
Yeah.
and Landry was a big. I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know the man, but let's just say he was. He looked chemically altered. I mean, he had like 28-inch biceps as a safety, right?
Yeah, he
But
was.
so early on, Jacobs was a beast, but then later
I wish
on,
he kept that up, right? I mean, I wish he extended that for like
short
a few
career
more
when you run that hard, though. When you run
Yeah.
that hard, very
Yeah, you
short
probably
career. I mean,
right.
there's
And
only
he
2
ran
guys
high,
in
too. That was
history
the
I
other thing. He
knew
was
that could
starting
do
to
that.
run higher. He used to lower his shoulder, but
Yep.
you know,
All
I
right.
get
So
that plays
who's number
into it.
4? Bring me 4, because right now I'm okay with 5. I can live with 5.
Don't worry, let me get another young guy out of the way for you. All right, I'm going to put Saquon at number 4. So the reason being here was for the times that he was able to play, and consistency was not there for him. The injuries were too much of a factor. But 4 years altogether, easily over 1,000 yards rushing. And to your point about Hampton, I mean, I give him credit for playing behind, those bad teams. Saquon dealt with that too, and really one of the worst offensive lines in football, yet he was still able to produce when he went out there. And that 2022 team, a lot of those last second drives fell upon his shoulders. The issues are obviously going to come down to this. He's not going to get a second contract with the Giants, so that's it. That's his legacy with us, right? Cut short, not nearly as good. I mean, I don't even know if you put it as good as Otis Anderson. I don't know if you do, because let's face it, we didn't really do a whole lot of winning here. But, just like you said with Hampton, he put the team on his shoulders. And I would say this, the one difference between him and Hampton is compared to the peers at the time, I would argue that Saquon, early 2020, is one of the better running backs of his era. Like, you could put him top 10 running backs in any given year when he's going out there to perform. He was one of the few that were putting the teams on the back in an era that you generally weren't. So, and his body of work, by the way, talent-wise, like overall talent, I'm putting him number 2 overall on the list out of the 7 guys that I analyzed. His ability to shift is very Barry Sanders-like, and his unique skill set that you just don't see. So he's got some stats to back it up with the 4 1,000-yard seasons. That's one shy of Hampton. And then again, the body of work, the talent, it's easy with him compared to now, also compared to his relative time being, it's the same thing because it's the current era. He was a very good running back, but yeah, legacy-wise, I mean, him not coming back, it's not really it.
All right, let me just say quick, thank you, Spartan, for making my list seem less controversial. So thank you.
Because right now, like, Spartan's just burning it down right now, man.
Where would you guys place more of a significance then for which running back was better? Like when you say Hampton, do you think Hampton was more talented than Saquon?
Hampton was very talented. He was extremely talented.
When he was at Georgia Spartan, they used to call him Flying High Rodney Hampton, because he would leap over the line from like the 3-4 yard line and clear the linebackers and go in, and then you thought, okay, well, that's just college guys. The dude could outrun a ton of people. Pure talent. Saquon has more pure talent. Right. Rodney Hampton did more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And he could outrun guys easily. He had a lot of, from what I remember watching, I watched his entire career, college and pro. I'm still stinging over. He's not on the list. He's just an honorable mention.
Jay just said the funniest thing ever. This quote I'm gonna have to write down. Ready? Look at this.
I don't even know how he got that little logo in there. I know we have a generally older fan base here. I know you can't stand hearing these young cats. I get it.
Jay,
what was the average? What was the average age of viewership for Rush? I know you looked into, what was it, 62.5?
Average one age was so the window was 38 to 42.
I know. Back in my day, I watched Rodney Hampton win his 5 games. It was great.
But
you know what? How many games he won? But he was good. And I'm biased because he was he's probably my all-time favorite running back for the Giants. So
okay.
Hey, Joker, look.
Yeah.
Rodney,
he was,
right
and again, and being a running back myself, he was a guy that I was like, oh man. Yeah. So he was so good. And if you weren't there, and I know you look at numbers and all that, but if you're not there to watch his entire career, it is hard to judge what he did. even when we go with the older guys too, it really is if you just look at numbers. But
I get what you're saying, but
he was so damn good.
Got to put this back
to
up.
that, remember, the next two guys I'm going to go over are old school guys, and while I didn't watch them play, there's a lot of parameters that go into it. And again, I went over 5 things that I'm looking at. Like, so for instance, I'll go with number 3 right now. I'm going to go with Joe Morris. All right. I like his body of work. I like the dude's legacy. He was very hard to tackle, very formidable on that offense. Gets overlooked because when you think of the Giants at the time, you think the defense. Sims is number 2. Joe Morris is underrated in the history books. He's a very talented running back. He was consistent. He had a good run there in the 1980s. As many years in a row of Hampton getting 1,000 yards, no. But you look at the peak numbers for Morris at the time, incredible. And I forget what year is it, 1985 or 1986? 1985. He had 21 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then in 1986, 14 touchdowns. I mean, the dude, like when he was at his peak, balled out. That's the one thing I wish I kind of saw with Hampton. Like if he had a couple years there, 92, 93 were his best years, but like a couple years where he was like the top 3 back in the league, we'd probably be having a different story. He was consistent at the level of being a very good running back, right? That's why he's not in Hall of Fame talks.
Okay.
That's the one. That's the one on your list I agree with right now.
Yeah, I like Joe. I like Joe Morris a lot. He was definitely he's a 3-4 type of guy. All right, so I don't. We'll repeat it when we're done, right? But let's keep going because, like,
I'm curious who one is. I think I might know who one is, but I'm curious.
I'm going to go. So number 2, there's controversy. We had to talk about this in the chat earlier. How do you qualify this dude? Was he a receiver? Was he a running back? What's the situation? Because of his productivity, because he was considered a halfback, Frank Gifford's number 2. And there's a few things you got to look at here with the dude's the legacy aspect and talent compared to peers at the time. Like he was flat out pretty much one of the top dudes in the NFL at the time, especially at this position, right?
I don't even think they were the NFL at that point.
Right. Legacy-wise, he is the only dude on this list that is in the Hall of Fame. And he's got the championship with the Giants. And he was the face of the Giants at the time. The name goes down in infamy. I'm probably getting the word wrong. Screw it. You guys were around for World War II.
That's right. You're rattled still from Rodney Hampton.
Now listen, give
all-time stats-wise, clearly he's not going to stack up with the modern day. But again, what he did back then, though, like
Giff couldn't be stopped.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Except for the
Chuck Bednarik.
He got him, but you had to get him really good in order to stop him at all.
Now I don't know who number 1 is.
Peers, and the consistency he's number 1 at. He balled out the entire 1950s decade. He owned it.
All right.
Yeah.
And number 1 all-time running back for the New York Giants of all time.
Number 1 all-time is Tiki Barber. You guys probably could have guessed at that point. Talent compared to now, like could you drop him today and he ball out? Yeah, his talent was all over the place. Whereas a guy like Saquon, very shifty guy, Tiki could kind of do it all, and he can actually do a screenplay as well, right? So talent's there. His legacy with the Giants. If you won that Super Bowl with us, it'd be number 1. I'm putting him at number 2 because he didn't win a championship with the Giants, right?
He was 20 yards away from winning the rushing title.
Yeah.
Because Sean Alexander played at like 4 o'clock and like Tiki played at 1. And that dude was like, just give me 2 more carries.
That's it. That's all it comes down to, right? But, his body of work was just excellent. I mean, the Giants, even in the early 2000s, they had Kerry Collins, a good quarterback, but it was still a running team, I'd say. It was more so like you feared the Giants run than you feared the Giants Giants pass. And I think what's very unique about Tiki, which you'll probably never see again, was that it was the back part of his career that he balled out. That doesn't happen very often. You're not going to see that anymore.
Remember too, the first 2 years he was more of a third down back. He wasn't taking the pounding. And then I know this sounds ridiculous, but I clearly remember this being in an interview that he'd gotten LASIK eye surgery, and they said that he just saw the game better, quicker than he ever had. I think he got it done in year 3 of his career, and the dude just took off.
Yeah, from 2000 2006. I mean, he and listen, like where he does rank amongst 2000s running backs is he's obviously top 10. He's a very, very good running back.
I think there's 2 windows in there where he might be top 5.
And then absolutely. Some
like
sites
said, he almost won the rushing title that year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then all-time stats, by the way, compared to all the Giants and really everybody, he's number 1. He's got 10,000 yards. plus.
Yeah.
So he clearly wins that award.
All right, so give us your. Let's wrap 6
Yeah.
and 7 into one. Who's the honorable mention?
Are we going to hear this again? Wait, we have to hear this again?
Yeah, I know it's tough. Okay,
Honorable mention:
fine.
Otis Anderson,
And
Rodney Hampton. Number
Rodney
5,
Hampton,
Brandon
number 5.
Jacobs. Number 4, Saquon. 3, Joe Morris. 2, Frank Gifford. 1, Tiki Barber.
Whew.
3 through 1 were very good, Spartan. 3 through 1 were very good.
Yeah,
You redeemed your role.
and if you know what, we're not on. Like I said, because Elon has let us down once again. We're not on Twitter, so the show is missing like 1/3 the audience. Right?
Well, it's
Right now?
certainly boosting the average age viewership. That's why the comments are blowing up right now.
What you wait? So wait, you think YouTube is older than Twitter? Probably, right?
Actually, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the kids are on YouTube.
But I do have all the running back stats on hand, which was only a minor factor compared to the overall picture.
All right. Well, I guess
You
I'm
thought
up.
I was just going to look at stats and just go from there, but damn it, I didn't do that.
Yeah,
You're a factor.
we're not endorsing the Rodney Hampton honorable mention thing. Just so people know, we're not endorsing that.
I'm sorry.
But I like the fact he's got conviction, folks. That's what.
Yeah, he did. He did.
All right.
All right, Craig, you going to be controversial here? Or you going to be?
I don't think so. Because the Giants don't have that luxury at the wide receiver position. We're a running, as Spartan just proved out, we're a running team. Have always been a running team. We're not the Dallas Cowboys. We're not the Green Bay Packers. We've never had this bucket full of talent where we pulled out of the wide receiver position. So there's really no controversy to be had. It's just what order do you want to hear them in, right? So, except, there might be one or two you could argue with me. I did not put Frank Gifford in here because he is considered a halfback, okay? Because he's got a shit ton of stats, but no. All right, so let me start at number 5. Number 5 all-time wide receiver for the New York Giants is Ike Hilliard, okay? Ike Hilliard had 4,600 yards receiving. He had 27 touchdowns. And what I liked about Ike is he was basically like today's slot guy. You know what I mean? Like, because he was never very big. He was never really super fast, but he was willing to go over the middle. He was doing a lot of the dirty work. He averaged for the Giants 12.6 yards a catch. That's pretty good for a very small, thin, receiver, Now, here's what's cool about Ike, right? So he's a first-round pick out of Florida. He played 8 years for the Giants, right? And we all had our little thing, what we were looking at. I was looking at what their best 2 years were, right? In 1999 and 2000, right? He had 1,700 yards, but he had 226 receptions. Like, you don't see many cats that small, averaging 112 catches a year. Right. So, he had 11 touchdowns. He had 1,700 yards receiving, 1,783 over 2 years. Those were his best 2 years as a Giant, 1999 and 2000. Right. He was basically, Kerry Collins' guy when Collins got there. Right. So number 5 is Ike Hilliard. I don't know what you guys think about Ike or if you guys have anything you want to add, but Ike was definitely a fan favorite and he was here 8 years. You guys have any thoughts on Ike or no?
Not a bad choice. I'm curious as to who the other 4 are because there's a couple other guys that may have gone in over Ike, but I got to see who else is on the list before I say.
All right.
I think, unfortunately, what I realize this is no knock against the Giants. I mean, it just is the nature of our team. I mean, defense, we can make this list, and our honorable mentions are still Hall of Fame players. But, wide receiver is very unique with the Giants. It's not that loaded all time with talent. So.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. But, I mean, we can kind of go any which way here.
Yep. So number 4, which a lot of people don't give this cat a lot of credit, is Victor Cruz. And I'll tell you why. Right? So one is you're talking about an undrafted free agent, right? And he bursts on the scene. Ike Hilliard at number 5 had 4,600 yards receiving. Victor Cruz had 4,500 yards. And if you want to round it because he missed it by 20 yards, okay, he had back-to-back 1,000 years receiving, right? That's unheard of in Giants land, right? That an undrafted free agent came in and had 3 years in a row of 1,000 yards. All right. He had 25 touchdowns as a Giant. And this is, again, what I love about him. 15, again, slot receiver, right? Doesn't play on the outside a lot. 15 yards per catch, right? That's pretty good for a slot guy. So then I start looking at his best 2 years, right? His longest catch in his tenure is 99 yards for a touchdown, which put the Giants in the playoffs against the Jets, if you guys remember that. Without that 99-yard catch in return, which the Giants wouldn't have went to the playoffs that year, okay, in 2007. I'm trying to look for his sorry, I said 20 yards. He was 2 yards shy, 2 yards shy of back-to-back yards receiving, right? His best years were 2011, 2012, 19 touchdowns, 2,600 yards receiving. As I told you, Ike Hilliard over 2 years had, 226 receptions. Cruz only had 168 catches over his 2 best years. So in 2 years, a guy like Ike Hilliard, who was, not as talented as Cruz, had more receptions. But it proves out that the Giants draft slot receivers and they do wonders with them, right? As Spartan just said, we don't really have a big, deep bench of outside wide receivers, right? So right there, I just gave you 2 slot receivers, number 5 and number 4, Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz, again, with 4,500 yards receiving, 25 total touchdowns, averaging 15 yards a catch. What'd you guys think of Vic?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think Vic's talent and his body of work was phenomenal for the time. Again, like so many players, I wish it lasted longer, but there's a guy that, spread across his best seasons over time, his best few seasons. Like if he did that a few more years, he could be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he balled out when he balled out. There's no doubt, but he was really only for a couple of years, unfortunately.
Think about it. Not many on the Giants. Like beside Odell, we don't get receivers back to back 1,000-yard receivers. Yeah. It's never been done. I mean, they just don't have it. Here comes an undrafted free agent. The entire NFL passed up on this cat.
Yep.
Right? So he's my number 4. This is what I would call the Rodney Hampton pick of the wide receivers, because to me they're the same guy. They literally the same guy playing a different position. Number 3 all-time Giants wide receiver, Hakeem Nicks.
Good choice.
Okay, Hakeem Nicks was probably, until Odell came, and before him and after him, was the most talented. He had the biggest hands they'd ever measured on the planet. He could catch the ball with one hand and his left hand, put it behind his back, through his legs. I mean, the guy was just phenomenal, but he got that leg issue where they had to what's it called? Decompartmentized something, where the blood pools in your legs and stuff. Rodney Hampton was a first-round pick out of North Carolina, 29th overall. His best 2 seasons, 2010, 2011, 224 yards in that time, 18 touchdowns in 2 years. 18 touchdowns, guys. We don't have a receiver with 2 touchdowns, let alone 18, right? His overall numbers for Hakeem Nicks, 46-30. So ready? Ike Hilliard, 46-30. Victor Cruz, 45-49. Hakeem Nicks, 46-30. Those three guys are all within 50 yards of each other, right? And the way Rodney Hampton played is the way Hakeem Nicks played, right? They carried those bad teams on their back. Thank you, Peace. That's what I was looking for. Compartment syndrome. And that cut it short. But the guy had 27 touchdowns. And he only averaged 12.6 yards a catch. So that's a guy who has yak. That's a guy who's got yards after the catch, right? Because where Cruz was 15 yards, he was 12.6.
Yeah, and it's a similar story with him, right? I mean, 2 great years. He was a clear-cut, just number 1 wide receiver. Tall, had that athletic ability, was able to catch things. I mean, that Falcons game, his whole playoff run in 2011 was phenomenal, but that Falcons game in particular gets forgotten a lot. But that was a beauty of a game that he played.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was like the one time, like it just felt like the Giants just had the true big body one, wide receiver one. He was that guy. Again, wish he just played over more seasons.
If you threw the ball at him, he caught it. Like there was no like, oh, Hakeem dropped it. You know what I mean? If you threw the ball at him, he just caught it.
Yeah.
Like, fan favorite, awesome. So Hakeem at number 3. Number 2, love him or hate him, is Odell Beckham Jr. Odell had 5,476, right? 5,476 total yards. Ready for this, guys? 44 touchdowns. All right. I mean, 44 touchdowns. He averages
themselves. Yep.
Yeah. 44 touchdowns. He averages 14 yards a catch. At the later part in his career, he started catching those slants a little bit more than he did go downfield. But, Odell's 2 best years, he was first round pick out of LSU. His best 2 years were 15 and 16. Over those 2 years, he had 100 yards receiving. He had 23 touchdowns, dude, in 2 years, right? 197 receptions. I mean, the guy, again, most dynamic.
He was the most talented Giants receiver ever.
Yeah. Most talented of all time. And like I said, if you wanted to count Tiki Barber and Lawrence Taylor, he's the most dynamic athlete they had. He got too big too fast, maybe, right? Because he got he was international. He was hanging out with rock stars and rappers and models, and whatever happened, there was a lot going on in that young cat's life. It's sometimes some guys can handle it, some guys can't, whatever happened, Odell could ball. I mean, wicked talent. His godfather is Shaquille O'Neal, roommates with his dad, if you didn't know that. Just a ton of talent. Gave us some of our best memories, whether it was taking a slant to the house, the catch in Dallas, the 3-finger catch that put him on the map, just the throwing the helmet at Norman. I mean, the dude was a wild card. Yeah. He was fun to watch. And, he kind of reminded me, I should say that about Plaxico. I'd be like, dude, if you can keep Plaxico, just rein him in just a tad, this guy's going to play forever, Yeah. The most impressive thing is Jay just took the words out of my mouth. Thank you, Jay. The most impressive thing about Odell Beckham Jr. is I have never to this day seen anyone run a better route than him.
Yeah.
He ran the best routes possible. Lower his hips, puts his foot in the dirt, double move to triple move. Like everything he did was a dream come true for a wide receiver coach.
Let me ask you that. I mean, this is the one thing that I personally loved about him. He was the first time, probably, after Strahan, where it felt like the Giants had the best person at that position in the NFL, or one of them. I mean, there was obviously a lot of good ones in the.
You nailed it.
That was it. That was the first time. It's like, man, we got a guy that is pretty much cream of the crop. Like we finally did it.
Spartan in 2015 and 16, he almost had 3,000 yards over 2 years.
Crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
Look at it. 2015-16, he had 2,800 yards. He was 2 games away from averaging 1,500 yards a season. Yeah, the cat was special.
And I guess the frustrating thing is, and Sean, I'm sorry, I feel like I haven't let you talk much.
No, you're good.
It just would have been nice if we won more during his tenure. I mean, it's the same thing with Saquon, right? It's like the thing that weighs the whole thing down. The whole experience is like, we go 6-10 with all that. It's like, man, it kills. It kills compared to when you're balling out and you're winning. Right. And you win a Super Bowl with Victor Cruz feels way better than, you have a free catch against Dallas. It's like at a game you lose. That's the one thing that kind of holds it back. But again, I mean, talent wise, he is the best receiver in Giants history.
Well, if that Green Bay game doesn't happen, if the receivers don't drop as many as they do that day, I think we beat Green Bay, and then who knows what happens after that. So that's what's disappointing is he had his opportunity that first year. I know he was still a younger player, but that's where you want to see him produce. That's where legends are made with the Giants, right?
Right.
It's all about what you do in the postseason, and that was disappointing because that team could have went. I'm convinced they could have they should have beat Green Bay that day if they just. It wasn't just Odell. I'm not, just putting on him, but Odell, Shepard missing those wide open passes. Like it's a different ball game.
Because then what? The route would have been Dallas, who we beat twice that year, and then Atlanta, which I Atlanta crushed. I forget who in the NFC Championship game, but I don't think we were too far off from Atlanta. They theoretically could have gone back to the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think we were too far off. That team was definitely better. They just didn't show up in the playoffs. So the young receivers they shit the bed.
Last but not least, there's no discussion around it. Is the number one all-time receiver in Giants history is Amani Toomer. There's just no getting around it. Right? Ready? Amani Toomer had 9,497 yards. He's equal to Tiki Barber. They almost had the same amount of yardage, right? He had 54 touchdowns. He averaged 14.2 yards per catch. Wide receiver drafted from Michigan, which we don't love, right? Of course, Spartan, right? But ready? Here's what you can rest on. 5 straight years of 1,000 yards. All right. There's no arguing with that. 5 years of 1,000 yards, 99 to 2002 99 was his best year. And then 2002 was his best year. If you combine those 2 years, it's 16 yards, right? He had 16 yards a catch, right? I mean, he played 13 years with the franchise.
The biggest crime too ever is that he never made a Pro Bowl. And you look at those years. Now, I read an article on it. There was a lot of good NFC wide receivers in that era, so it makes somewhat sense. But the dude deserved those sorts of nods, and the fact that he never made one is crazy. I mean, freaking
he got shafted. The guy had 5.
5 in a row.
Look, I mean, you're talking about a guy who had 1,300 yards when he was 6 years in the league. I mean, the guy was consistent as hell, not flashy, quiet. You know what I mean? But he's the epitome of professionalism, I guess the word would be.
Yeah.
He went out and did his job. So my top 5 Giants all-time wide receivers: Ike Hilliard, Victor Cruz, Hakeem Nicks, Odell Beckham Jr., and Amani Toomer.
So here's two guys. Here's 2 guys that omitted that I think should be on your top 5.
Top 5 or honorable mention?
No, in the top 5. There's 2 guys that I think can be on there. One is close. One I think should definitely be on there. Homer Jones should be on that top 5. Yeah, he's number 3 all time in receivers if you take out the running backs. Yep. He had
Giff was up there.
Right. He had 3 other running backs. Gifford, Barber, and Joe Morrison were all up there as halfbacks. He's number 3. He had 35 touchdowns and 4,800 yards. So I think that's my one omission that I think should be on that list. And I probably would put him over Ike on that list. And I'm an Ike fan, but I think Homer goes in over Ike.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I can I was looking. I didn't put Giff in as a running back, and then I was kind of all right, Homer Jones. I'm it's just a different game. You know. Then there was a little bit of a wild card for guys like Lionel Manuel and Bobby Johnson. What
about Plaxico?
That was the next one I'm going to say.
That was the one I was a little puzzled. I would have put him legacy-wise.
He wasn't here long enough. He was here for a cup of coffee. You know what I mean?
33 touchdowns, though.
Well, I mean, I feel like Nix and Cruz are in the same situation. They really had a few years there.
No way. Plaxico was hurt half of that year. Dominic Hickson played for him. The guy was. You have to look at how many games he played over that period of time.
Well, Burris played 50. Yeah, Burris played 57 games for the Giants. Cruz played 70.
I mean, that's a season and a half more.
Yep, it is. But he had 33 touchdowns in 57 games.
Yeah, and that's Super Bowl. And we talk about legacy too. I mean, listen, Cruz
and then the biggest catch and what he did against Green Bay on a bad ankle.
I wasn't going honorable mention. You guys broke the rules, but my honorable mention was Plaxico Burress. He was my honorable mention, but I didn't say to create one. So Plaxico's going to be honorable mention, but I couldn't put him up above a guy who went back to back to back, or even the fact that was known as a Pittsburgh Steeler, or he was known, for some, the Green Bay game is what he's known for. But I mean, he shot himself in the leg. He got hurt. He got hurt the year before, and Hickson had to play for him. Like, he was always pissed off and angry. He never came to training camp. Like, to me, it was really hard to put him in the top 5. But again,
I didn't know that was.
I'm not as upset over Plaxico Burress, but I think Homer Jones has got to be on that list. Like, he's got to be on there over Ike Hilliard, and he had that many yards in an era that passing wasn't huge, right?
Like, listen, I'm putting Cole's comment up here because Cole gets it. So what's clear about this segment is Mush and Joker don't follow the rules. Exactly, Cole.
I've already said this, Cole. I'm the Joker. What Joker follows the rules? Come on, man.
And my excuse is I got to give a shout out to all the great running backs that played for the Giants, and I made a top 5. But Otis Anderson, we've had him on the show. Got to give a shout out to him and what he did for the Giants. Rodney Hampton, he was a very good running back, almost as good as Saquon Barkley.
Oh, not again. Not again.
Yeah, he's coming back for like a second round of saying that Rodney Hampton wasn't good.
I stayed within the rules. I had a top 5. I just had a tie. I didn't give an honorable mention. I had a top 5, but I had a tie at 5. That's well within the rules.
I mentioned the honorables.
Spartan went with 7 players. He clearly broke the rules. Clearly broke the rules. And left off Rodney Hampton.
And took like what arguably is like the 3rd or 4th best back in Giants history and put him at 7.
Yep.
Put him, who? Otis?
No,
Hampton.
Hampton was 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a difference between 6 and 7 when the rules are 5
he was
only.
a pretty good running back. I appreciate and respect everything he did for the Giants at the time, but I'd much rather have the talent of Saquon Barkley. My goodness.
No freaking way. I'm taking Rodney Hampton over Saquon Barkley any
How many
day.
breakaway touchdowns did Rodney Hampton have?
I have to look it up, but he had a good amount. Like, he had breakaway speed.
Yards per carry, he's half a yard shy of.
He ran track at Georgia.
He's half a yard behind him. That's nothing. Like, he's right up there.
It's 3.8 yards per carry versus 4.3. It's worth
Okay.
considering.
Yeah, but 3.8 is really good. And again, if you take away,
and that was really just about as many good years as he had as Saquon did.
yeah,
and the 1,000-yard seasons. Granted, I'll give Saquon the respect that he had an extra game a year. For the most part. So,
and again, I think it's a different conversation.
How many touchdowns did Saquon have?
I mean, touchdowns?
Yeah,
I don't have that. I don't have it off the top of my head.
I can tell you.
All-time stats, he's still a little bit better right now, but when we talk about the actual talent in comparison to peers, I mean, Saquon's definitely better.
All right. 49 touchdowns for Hampton, 35 touchdowns for Barkley.
Yeah.
That's rushing, not receiving.
49 for
Hampton.
And how many for Saquon?
35.
Those are just rushing, not receiving stats.
How many touchdowns per game is that? Because it's about 7 a year for Hampton. Saquon played 6 years with us, right? So versus 8. Actually, it's a little bit less for Hampton. Actually, it's about even, right? That literally splits it even. I'm pretty sure.
So if I go receiving yards,
I'll look. So Saquon Barkley played 74 games. Hampton played 104.
Yeah, I gave him longevity. I mean,
he's number 2 on the all-time rushing list. Rodney Hampton.
Cole is right though. I mean, Hampton had 51 total touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. And that's including receivers. Yeah, no, he was a good player. There's no doubt about it. I just didn't think that like his peaks would really touch what Saquon could do.
His long was 63 yards, which is pretty good.
It's still good. I mean, it's still a good run, but it's like I felt with Saquon, that was one thing that was special. It's not going to give you many wins, but there were several, especially in his rookie year, where it's like he had that breakaway ability, and we saw it in his first game, right? Hampton, he had it sometimes, just not as much. Same with any running back, because the bell curve was a little thinner.
Yeah,
Is it for you guys more of a legacy thing? Like we had the dude for 8 years. He was pretty consistent that he was always good, not the best in the league, but
no, he was just that good. Like him over. Yeah, he was just that good. It's not a legacy. He was really freaking good. Like he was a better running back than Jacobs, bar none.
Yep.
Bar none.
Here's what
that was a little bit more of a legacy thing that factors in. Now for Hampton, I guess my question is, what was it about his game that you guys think particularly was
that on a bad team?
Yeah.
In his second year, he
I mean,
rushed.
Saquon's
for-
going to get the bad team accolade too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You're talking about Hampton having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row rushing for 1,000 yards.
Oh yeah, in the
Saquon-
consistency category, he's number 3.
But but I'm saying not consistent. He played every year and he performed. Barkley had to get hurt for 2.5 years and come back. I mean, this guy ran for 1,000 yards for 5 straight years.
Yeah.
And when Saquon Barkley ran for 2 years of 1,000 and then 2 years off and came back.
3 years of 1,000. He had 3 years out of the last several. Actually, hold up a sec.
Well, who are the peers during Hampton's time that you said he didn't stack up with?
Sure. Just go
Because
to the top.
Emmett and Barry, I
Saquon
mean,
Barkley did not rush for 1,000 yards 3 years in a row. He rushed
No, he
for
didn't.
13.
He
for
didn't. But,
1,300,
yeah, but I don't like if
1,000.
he got injured and came back and ran for 1,000. I don't care. That's still good.
But you got to care because while Barkley was getting hurt, Hampton ran for 1,000 yards 5 years in a row.
Mhm.
5 years.
No, that's good. Very good. Again, none of them were like insanely great. 93, you could argue. So for the 90s guys that we're comparing them to, like top 10 of the decade, right? Here are the best running backs of the 90s. Sanders Smith, Terrell Davis, Marshall Faulk. I would really think of him more 2000s, but
How many great years
Irvin
did Terrell
Thomas,
Davis have? How
Jerome
many years?
Bettis, Curtis Martin, Ricky Waters, Eddie George, Marcus Allen. And listen, he was special to the Giants because of the stuff that we're talking about, but it kind of comes down to the same thing here. I mean, when you compare Saquon to his peers, I still thought we had one of the best running backs in the
yeah,
league.
but Saquon doesn't have the same amount of peers that Hampton did when he was playing.
I don't
there's
think he
not
does.
nearly clearly they're not
Yeah.
the same backs.
You're talking about
You're right,
Rodney
you're right, but he
Hampton
still ranks amongst them, in my opinion. Like, and who's the best right now? I mean, it's
Rodney Hampton had to go
McCaffrey,
against
right?
Barry Sanders.
And Emmett
Right.
Smith and Marcus Allen.
Yeah, who does
And-
those are
Saquon have
tough.
to
Well,
run
Marcus
against?
Allen's more 80s, I think. Anyway, like Morris, I thought compared better to his 80s peers than I thought Hampton did to the 90s guys.
I don't know. I would. How many great years did Terrell Davis have? 2.
A few, but the
Yeah.
peaks. I mean, those peaks are so high. Like it's kind of like the Odell thing, right? I mean, only a few great years, but like the peaks were peaks, man. Those things were elite.
Oof. That's a tough. I mean, because here's what I'm going to say: the running backs that Hampton were his peers are far better than what Saquon has as his peers to compete.
Yeah, it's
with.
more of a running league then than it is now. The
Yeah.
difference is I still put Saquon like in the threshold of his peers versus Hampton, where these guys are all I think a different tier ahead of him, right? And that's
Terrell
why
Davis had
there's no Hall
4.
of Fame conversation with Hampton.
Yeah.
Terrell Davis had 4 disgusting years. Like they're not even human.
Yeah, well,
1100
there you go, right? I mean that's why. I mean,
1,100, 1,500, 1,700, 2,000.
But he also had the arguably the greatest offensive line coach in the history of the NFL and one of the greatest offensive lines of all time. He was running behind.
Yeah,
Like, because you think about that, when Terrell Davis got hurt, Reuben Jones came in and had phenomenal years, right? Like,
I'll tell you what, if I can make an adjustment on my list, I could consider putting Jacobs behind Hampton. I could do that, but Saquon, because the thing is,
no, that's fine. Yeah.
You say with Saquon, I can't do it with him.
Well, listen, I'll give you that. If you put Hampton over Jacobs, I'm good. I'm good.
That makes sense. Saquon over Hampton, I can't do that.
I just want Hampton on the top 5. He's got to be.
There you
on
go.
the
That
top
puts him
5.
in the top.
That's what he's
5.
doing. That's what he's doing. He took
That's
Jacobs
fine.
off
I'll
and
put
put him.
Jacobs down a notch because you're right. It wasn't consistent enough. I still love watching him though. But you're right. I could put Hampton above him and not lose sleep over it. Saquon can't do it.
That's fine. I don't have as big a
By the way, the 90s running backs are just fire.
Dude,
It was a different era.
it was the golden age, man.
These dudes
No,
are
and we're talking. By the way, Sean, you were a running.
You're not
back.
even putting him in Bo Jackson in there. Like, he got injured. If Bo
Exactly,
Jackson
Bo,
doesn't get injured, like Bo, like, holy cow. Like, think of all the running backs. Yes, I was a running back, so I
You were
followed.
a running back in the 90s, Sean. You were a 90s running. Did you have the cowboy collar?
I was an 80s running back too, because Eric
Oh, I-
Dickerson, all those guys. I had the rec specs when I was in high school. When I
Oh, hell
first,
yeah.
oh yeah. Eric Dickerson at SMU was my favorite running back, aside from I was an Earl Campbell fan too, but I wasn't old enough to remember him really at Texas. I remember him with the Oilers. So yeah, it was a glory age for me. The 80s and 90s running backs, holy cow, I was in my glory.
Dude, Ricky Waters was disgusting.
Yeah.
He ran for 1,000 yards for 4 different teams.
Yeah. Ricky Waters was really, really good. Again, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you looked at Hampton and who his peers were, like, they were insane. and the teams they were on were insane. Like they were really good. And Hampton was considered at the time, he was viewed very highly by a lot of people in the NFL. Like he gets overlooked. And Spartan, you made a good point. Like he gets overlooked, and I'm not sure why by people. Like he's a forgotten running back. You know,
he
like
had just one year where he had a disgusting year, like some of these running backs did. You know what I'm saying? Like and these are very consistent, very good years, right? I almost compare it to Eli Manning, and granted, Eli won a couple Super Bowls, but similar to that, right? I mean, they're very, very good. They're not necessarily like, oh my God, those kind of years, especially compared to the other running backs. But you know what? If he played today, if we had a running back right now that just had 5 years in a row of 1,000 yards rushing purely, we'd all be very happy.
Yeah, Hampton could play today. He could play in today's NFL. And I don't know what his stats were at the time, but again, if he doesn't get hurt in 90, it's a whole different. And I love Otis Anderson. I love what he did in that Super Bowl, but it's a whole different conversation about Rodney Hampton if he does not get injured in 90.
That's his rookie year, 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That could put him the notch over. I'll give him the notch over Jacobs, make you all happy. But yeah.
So in 91,
so final list.
In 91, he had 10 touchdowns. In 92, he had 14 touchdowns.
Very good.
And then he had two down years of 93, 94. He only had 5 and 6. And then he came back in 95 with 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, 93 was the year he made the Pro Bowl. Go figure. Yeah, so real quick, I'll reorder it right now. T. 1, Gifford 2, Morris 3. I'm keeping Saquon at 4. There's just no way I can adjust that. 5, Hampton, 6, Jacobs, 7, Otis.
I'll take it.
All right.
I'll go with that. I'll take it.
All right, gentlemen.
Look, we've been running really long. It was definitely fun.
Yeah.
We're going to have to figure out how to get this Twitter thing fixed because, like, normally we've got a couple hundred people that cruise in, stop in from Twitter, and then bounce. Like, we have 7, right? It's like, so we got to figure out how to get that Twitter thing fixed. Thank you guys for all hanging out. If I missed any of you guys, I see all you guys in here. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Next week, we will have Jordan Renan from ESPN. After that, Sean Marash from WFAN. Also, just so you guys know, Spartan Mike is busting out year 2 for the Fantasy Football Ballers League. If you want to play against Spartan Mike, please just send him a
couple of you guys DM me already, but all you guys out there, Crypto, Mark, you guys want to play?
I will open the website up, Spartan, in a couple weeks where they can register and put their team in. We got to get that going. So in year 2, Joe won last year, won a signed Amani Toomer jersey.
Yep. Yeah, we got prizes here, guys. No contribution fee, but we do have prizes.
Yeah, and I think it was the league to enter the league was $25. I think it was. They had a blast. Spartan kind of ran the table at the end. Joe kind of held on. But we wouldn't let Spartan have the grand prize, so we gave it to Joe for the championship game.
Thanks, Craig.
Yep, no problem. And lastly, as I told you guys, every 2 years I make a new logo. So the new logo to add on is in the mix, and it is fire. It is absolutely out of control. It is insane. So you guys are going to completely dig this thing. I don't want to give any hints away. It's like nothing we've ever made before. It's nothing you've ever seen before. It's going to be the first of its kind. It's badass, and it's coming. So we're out. It's already 9:43. We've been on here forever. Sorry about the early technical difficulties. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
Peace.